the debate continues as to whether or not the Bears should try to go for the running back. They are, at least as of a week and a half ago, they had the highest odds, even though expectation was still the Dallas Cowboys drafting Ashton Jeanty. Brad Biggs in his mock draft last week that he released, the 1.0, had Will Campbell falling to the Bears, the tackle from LSU. And I still think that Campbell would be falling if that were the case, but people are skeptical about his arm length, and I understand that that is something that they care about. Ryan Poles has shown that he likely cares about it as well in what you see out of the arm length of, say, Braxton Jones, who's in the upper percentile. When it comes to figuring out what you're going to do, now that the Bears have help on the line, which they created, we've talked about it a lot on this show, the debate over Ashton Jeanty rages. And I think what you're seeing here, Marshall, is the classic best player available versus team need versus did you buy yourself enough to have a luxury pick? I still consider Jeanty a luxury. If you're one player away, like the Eagles with a Saquon Barkley, then it's probably a discussion. But you're not picking that high typically if you're one player away.
No,
so
you're not. You're absolutely
still
not.
seeing this point counterpoint floating around the league.
I like it though. I like the engagement it creates. I like the attention that's brought to the issue of the running back. Do you know how many running backs were drafted in the first round last year?
I do not off the top of my head.
Well, that's because there were none. So it's hard to remember one when there were none. The year
there
before
were
that,
years where there weren't in the top two.
Well, I'm saying the year before that, 2023. You know how many running backs were drafted in the first round? 2.
Bijan Robinson and
Ben Johnson, Jahmyr Gibbs. The year before that, 2022. Do you know how many running backs were drafted in the first round?
Goose
0.
egg.
So that's the trend has been of late. Why would you spend a first round pick on a running back? Now, if you look at the two teams that did take running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs obviously on a very good team last year and a good team that since he's been in the NFL. You could argue Bijan Robinson hasn't had the quarterback play necessary for his team to be good enough. Although, don't they play in the worst division in football if you had to really align things? Is the NFC South worse than the AFC South?
Oh.
Because those are the two divisions I look at.
Yeah, when you put it that way. I still think the NFC South was weaker overall.
Okay. But so your point about luxury, it's interesting, and it's been the topic of a lot of smart football people talking about football. Dane Brugler was actually with Robert Mays on the Athletic Football Show and was asked about the idea of the Bears taking Ashton Jeanty at number 10.
Should we have the Ashton Jeanty conversation too? I mean, because
this is the other one to throw in there. Yeah. Is that now? I think
when you look at the depth chart,
this.
It's the one area that's like kind of like they could use an upgrade there. I think is running back.
I understand that thought if you look at the depth chart right now, but I'm still on board with you. I still think if you projected a year from now and Braxton Jones is a free agent and you always need more defensive linemen. You always need more pass rushers. So 100%. Them getting a third pass rusher at 10, having that guy be a rotational piece this year, by year 3, if you move on from Dio and that guy becomes a star, I think having that guy in the pipeline is worth it. And then offensive line, if you do have to move on from Braxton next year or you choose to, do you have a tackle in the pipeline that you can just throw in there? I still think when you're picking 10th overall and you're not lined up for multiple years at high impact positions, especially up front, I would rather take another swing at those high impact positions up front. I still think running backs are luxury picks, especially in the top 10. I don't think this roster is in the sort of position where they can afford luxury picks because, like I said, they need more blue chip talent. And I think that is what at 10, that's where you have to be hunting for that blue chip talent.
Let me ask you this. If you could get Bijan Robinson for the 10th overall pick, are you making that trade?
No.
Interesting.
I feel like you can find a running back a little bit later. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something, it's a longer conversation, but people are going to point to what happened with Saquon and what happened with Derrick Henry and all of that stuff. Derrick Henry's making less than the guy drafted 10th overall is going to end up making. And I think the idea that we're automatically going to be paying this guy like top 10 money at the position. And we've never even seen him play. So do we think Ashton Jeanty is going to be really good? Yeah, I can understand thinking Ashton Jeanty is going to be really good. We thought Melvin Gordon was going to be really good too. Melvin Gordon was solid. He was a good NFL running back. He was capable. He was productive. But I don't think anybody ever looked at him and said, yeah, that's a guy that was worth the 10th overall pick. So I just feel like that it's enough of a crapshoot when you've never seen the guy play in the NFL where that logic of, well, if we drop Saquon into this, like, how's it going to go? Ashton Jeanty is probably not Saquon, and we have no idea if he is or not.
But and that's why I said Bijan, because it's not just that we haven't seen him. It's also that the fact that the running back position is what it is, and especially in a draft like this where it's running back rich, you can get a plan B, plan C later on and feel not just as comfortable, but almost as comfortable with the running back you're getting later. It's just, do you believe that a guy like Ashton Jeanty could be that needle mover, just a little bit different where he is in, whether or not you think Bijan's that type or not, but a Saquon type, a guy that is a true needle mover. There's not many running backs like that, and so could the Bears see him that way? I think it's possible, sure. But again, in this draft especially, where it is just flush with running backs. I mean, there will be running backs that go undrafted that will have NFL careers in this draft.
Okay. I think he's right about that. This is an incredibly strong class of running backs, and that seems to be the case from every draft analyst who evaluates classes as a whole.
And that was, Dane Brugler with Robert Mays, the Athletic Football Show. They know what they're talking about. I go with this. Would they feel the same way if the running back class wasn't as deep as it is? That's number one. But number two, I completely agree with the point. Use draft resources to get a running back. You just don't have to use the number 10 pick. You've got a couple of other picks early second round. One of those you could use on a running back, or you could wait even later depending on how the draft plays out. I think there are other areas, and I thought the Melvin Gordon topic was a good one, the way they kind of projected that out, right? How about this? Based on what you know about money and the eye-opening, because now that I think about it, that does make sense that Derrick Henry's not getting that type of money, even now as a future Hall of Famer.
Which is wild.
It's wild.
It just tells you the value. It tells you how they interpret the value of that position.
But over the last 10 years, I'm going to give you the names of every first-round draft pick, and you tell me if you feel like they're worth, based on what you've seen them do in the last 10 years, a first-round draft pick. In 2015, the aforementioned Melvin Gordon was taken 15th. Todd Gurley was 10th. Either of those guys?
Gurley had a flash, didn't he?
But you can't at 10. You can't afford a flash. That's my point.
I mean, Gurley probably had what two very notable seasons.
I can get a running back coming off a rookie contract for a flash.
Yeah,
and not have to pay him top first round money. All right, 2016.
DeAndre Swift is making pretty decent money.
Number 4 overall, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trigger you.
I mean, I was there. It was here. It was. But he's the excellent example of this. 4 overall. Now the Cowboys' entire offense was based around him, but look what's happened in the latter years of his deal with that team, and then look what happened when he came back.
Are you ready for 2017? Number 4 overall, Leonard Fournette.
Oh man.
But
Stud's just fist pumped.
4 picks later. At 8, Christian McCaffrey. That's a guy who you're fine with him being the 8th overall pick.
Better value. You saw how he was utilized.
2018, number 2 overall, Saquon Barkley, the aforementioned. Number 27, Rashad Penny. That is late first round. And then number 31, Sony Michel. Saquon, yes. The other two, absolutely not. When you get a first rounder, you need someone who is going to give you. You're thinking someone who's going to play for at least, let's say, 6-7 years under your umbrella and be good because they're a first-round pick just based off the pedigree.
Through the rookie deal. right? Through the expectation.
Well, no, beyond the rookie deal,
right, but
for a
through
first
it.
round pick.
Yeah, but through it.
Yes. 2019. Here's an interesting one. Number 24 overall, Josh Jacobs.
Okay.
Now you probably sign up for that, right?
Based on offensive percentage of what he's carrying, yeah.
All right. Now, last pick of the first round in 2020 was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I would say no.
No.
Based on what we now know.
If you're redrafting, he's not a first rounder.
2021, number 24, Najee Harris. And number 25, Travis Etienne, right behind him. First round picks, though.
Yeah, that's the issue. We're not talking about second.
So the chances of you being right on a guy as a running back in the first round, that he's going to play 6 to 8 years and be like a good example of this, a good career to base this off of. And I'm trying to remember what round he was picked in. I think it was second round, but I'm going to tell you in a second. If you go back and look at the Eagles, their all-time leading rusher was LaShawn McCoy.
Right?
He's their all-time leading rusher. He was a second-round pick in the 2009 NFL draft. I think that's what you have to have if you're picking a running back early. Somebody who's going to be your all-time, unless you follow someone who's a Hall of Famer ridiculous. But that's if it's a running back, you need that type of impact. Now, could Ashton Jeanty be that guy? Sure. But I'll say this. They better be sure. They better be sure.
But even then, consider we fall in love with the outlier, which is what's going on with Saquon Barkley. He's the example because he's exemplary. He's the one of one. Derrick Henry, short, close behind him.
I would say 2
but
of 2.
When you consider Saquon Barkley's whole arc, you just mentioned drafted second overall. His team didn't even want him. He goes to another team inside the division, still ends up a free agent because we talk so much about how fungible the running back position is, right? So then we see how he makes the offense go and puts it all together, and the Eagles win the Super Bowl handily. Well, you know, we saw the whole arc.
But the infrastructure was in place for Saquon Barkley with the line. Now, and
that line, those two lines, offensive and defensive, were also built through the draft.
So the issue here is that if the Bears were to take Ashton Jeanty, they would have a line in theory that's supreme compared to what they've had in recent years here in Chicago. But the problem is that line not built through the draft. Those are temporary guys. You can go get more permanent offensive and defensive line guys with the first 3 picks of this draft.
And when you consider the crop of running backs and how many people there are who, in this class, they have brought strength to the overall class, whether it's Jeanty, Travion Henderson, Cam Scatterboot. Cam Scatterboot, by the way, NFL.com has him 3rd in this draft class out of the running back group.
Who's the other one he's behind?
So it's Henderson out of Ohio State.
Okay, got it.
And then it's Quinshon Judkins, the other Ohio State back. And I think that he's going to be a fabulous pick for somebody. DJ Giddens, RJ Harvey, Amarion Hampton. And Hampton I've seen as high on some people's draft class rankings as second or third.
Okay.
But the point is, there's that much quality. There's more than enough to go around. You could certainly argue a second round pick on someone. I think the Jahmyr Gibbs decision is still so interesting to me because who was behind it? Who said, this is the person I need to run this offense? Enough to where suddenly Swift wasn't needed.
Well, certainly Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson had input.
Right. But was it Ben Johnson who said it, or was it more Dan Campbell's decision? I would want to know because that's going to help us view the next several weeks with the draft.
Maybe you need to get on the horn with somebody from Detroit who can talk about that.
Man, that's the compelling aspect of this. I just don't know that you can say with this team we're gonna spend a first round pick at 10 in the top 10 on a running back when you have one.